If I had my way, everything would be so nice. This world would be like Paris. No, it would be a paradise. No one would ever have to say, I'm gonna get my wish someday. All one would have to do is say, this is my order, if you may. Welcome to another episode of the School Without Walls. Date is August the 12th, 2015. We are pre-recorded. The location is the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. Our objective is to inform, educate, and elevate with emphasis on the African American community. Our theme for this year is Black History After February. We want to move from 30 days, 1 month, to 12 months. Education of our people is very important when it comes to the history. I am your host and founder, Reverend Dr. Antony Hobbs. Our topic today is the Black family. My guest is the Reverend Daniel W. Johnson, pastor of Allen Temple African Methodist Episcopal Church, located here in Pine Bluff at 1123 South Virginia Street. Now, let us get started. Everyone in Pine Bluff and throughout the world, inasmuch as we are streaming, vamos a empezar. I use that phrase, let us begin, because I am a Spanish professor here at the university, and we want to just say a little Spanish in order to encourage our people on the importance of us all learning some Spanish. Let's start with cost and effect. Keep in mind that every effect has a cost. Therefore, we should be careful in our behavior. I can remember that my parents in that generation taught us to think twice before we speak, because they were aware that each effect had a cost. So we want to be careful, young people, as we express ourselves. Be sure that we think out what we're saying and not be caught up in the political correctness, if you will. Now, our subject is the Black family, so let us start with the fact. God is the cause, and reality is the effect. Those of us of faith believe that as a creator that we refer to as God. And God caused the family to be in existence. And the family is here for a purpose. We find that in Genesis of the Holy Bible, we're talking about how God established the family. It said that it was to be fruitful, it was to multiply, then it was to replenish the earth and have dominion over the earth. Now, in my opinion, in my understanding of theology, we didn't follow through on that. The definition of fruitful is to preparation, proper education. That did not happen. We went from preparation to procreation, which caused the multiplication of people. And we did the replenishing of the earth, but we've never had dominion over the earth because we have not followed the plan of God. So this is sort of leading into what Reverend Johnson will talk in more details about. But we must understand the basic principles of this course in order to be successful in the effect. Now, food for the power of thinking is I have a few statements on that during my opening remarks. Did you know that America is a nation that has very few men and mothers? This is my personal opinion. In order for us to have a better family, we must have
men. And we must have mothers. And of course, there's a difference in a man and just an adult male. There's a difference in a mother and one who gives birth to children. What I'm going to do is try to wind this up in order to stay on schedule. I should have just enough time to introduce my guest. No. One other thing I've forgotten. We have about 2 minutes, right, Randy? We got to talk a little bit about history, because our theme is Black history. Did you know that the guitar that's real popular among people throughout the world was invented by Robert F. Flemings Jr., the hairbrush by Lydia O. Newman, hand stamp, where we could stamp our names, Walter P. Purvis, the horseshoe, J. Ricks. Now, I take great pleasure in transitioning to my guest. I'm joined now by the Reverend Daniel W. Johnson, pastor of Island Temple African Methodist Episcopal Church, located on 1123 West Virginia Street. Glad to have you with us today.
Yes, sir.
And we are going to discuss the problems of the Black family. And I want your opinion on what the major problems are. And we will later talk about the solution. But let's deal with the problems first. Wait just a minute. Before we get to the problem, let's talk about your immediate family. You are married.
I'm married to Janet Coleman Johnson, a product of Bearden, Arkansas, Ouachita County, and she's also a product of University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. She's a graduate and married me some 29 years ago and came to live in El Paso, Texas, where I was stationed.
You met her there?
I met her here. I met her in Ouachita County, in Camden, but we became friends as I was a student at Arkansas State and she was a student at UAPB. And we got married when she graduated, and she came to join me in El Paso, Texas. We have 3 children.
I see.
Our oldest lives in Georgia. Kristen, we have a middle daughter who is a junior here at UAPB, and we have a 10th grade son who is going to be a student at Watson Chapel.
I see.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to stop for break.
They said a bottle was just a bottle. That no one would ever notice me. But I knew I could be more. That one day, I would make people smile.
Na 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 na, I love you so. I love you, I love you. La 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 la, la 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 la.
We're here.
Yay!
It's a short drive from your neighborhood to your naturehood. To find a neighborhood park or green space near you, visit discovertheforest.org.
I love taking care of my mom. It wasn't easy at first. She learned how to better communicate her needs.
And you learned how to not ignore yours.
I discovered how to make healthier meals.
And I discovered how much I enjoyed them.
Becoming a caregiver is a learning experience for everyone. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Those of you who have just joined us, I'm Dr. Antony Hobbs, host and founder of this educational program called The School Without Walls. My guest today is the Reverend Daniel W. Johnson, pastor of the Allen Temple African Methodist Episcopal Church here in Pine Bluff. On the other side of the break, we were talking about your family, and you mentioned you have 3 children.
Yes, sir.
One son in high school here, daughter who's in college here. We're glad you have her enrolled here. She's a junior, I believe.
That's correct.
And then you have one adult daughter.
That's correct.
Who is away. What city?
She's in McDonough, Georgia,
She's in
the
Georgia.
Atlanta metro area.
I see.
Yes,
Okay. And I visited your church Sunday. And of course, I saw a lady at the piano. Was that by any chance your wife?
Oh, by chance, yes.
When your daughters were performing?
That is correct, yes,
I
sir.
kind of thought that was your
Yes, sir.
wife. Okay, you seem to have a lovely family, and I like to say to the public that the daughters are really talented, lovely voices for singing. Is your daughter by any chance thinking in terms, is she involved in the choir here at the university?
She is she's an academic scholarship, but she's also a choral scholar also.
Mhm.
So she's
With the university?
With the university. She is a part of the Vesper Choir.
Very good. Very
as
good.
her mother was a part of the Vesper Choir.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Okay. Now let us talk now, if you will, about the problems of the black family. What are some of the problems we have according to God's plan?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Well, some of the problems are evident, and they are problems that transcend from the bigger family. I would think we have problems in the United States with family. Period.
Right.
And generally, when you have problems, they tend to persist a little bit more in the African American population. So we have problems of divorce, we have problems of unwed mothers, we have problems of drugs, alcohol, we have problems of abandonment, we have problems of people who have not taken seriously the commitment to be a parent or to be a spouse. So all of these things attacked and are attacking the family, the family unit, as you had talked about earlier. The family unit, which was one of the things that created at the beginning of time. And some of the things in our population are, I would say they date back to the time slavery, post-slavery issues of how we look at a family unit and how the family unit, some of the conceptualizations of what men think of themselves as black men creating and appropriating children.
Right.
And sometimes, and some of that, it is conditioned and has been conditioned. Some of it, how we in our community sometimes to create children, to make babies, is something that is
to some is a sign of masculinity.
A sign of masculinity, a sign of being a man, someone would say. But without the aspect of raising, without the aspect of caring, without the aspect of taking care of children, sometimes, not always, but sometimes.
Let me just comment on a few things you said. We're always speaking in terms to as teaching to the general public. So we admit that much of the problem moves from the slavery system. For young people, they might not understand that. So I want to explain that during the slavery system, the Africans in America were considered as property.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So that meant that the property owner purchased them, and then he wanted them to multiply as fast as possible. Therefore, they were encouraged to have sex in order to produce children, regardless of marriage commitment.
That's correct.
And some of that has carried over into the present age. So in order for that to change, off camera, you mentioned something that is key. It starts with an E. Would you like to talk about that?
Well, there are a couple of E's. One E is it's what we call ecclesia.
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 And that's a big word
That's
for...
a big theological word that means church.
Church,
And the
okay.
foundation of who we are, the foundation of what we do, and how we ought to look at life. At the turn of the century, church was a big part of our community.
Right.
For the United States, for Western
culture,
church has become less of a impactor.
Yes, you're right about
than many other things. But if we look at church, and if we look at the Bible, which is our foundational aspect, you mentioned it, the first family unit was created by God in Genesis. We see that what we celebrate as the children of Israel was focused with a lineage of families.
Definitely.
In fact, that the Abraham, Isaac, Jacob story is a family story.
Definitely.
That goes and transitions, and that story continues on to the New Testament, and it becomes a family story of Jesus Christ.
Definitely.
And so that family unit is important.
Definitely. Without the family unit, we really don't have God's system in play, do we? Can we go without the family and then do the rest of God's plan?
I would say that that is the primary and is the foundational. It is the foundational aspect.
Okay.
Now, sometimes there will be breaks and sometimes there will be challenges, even biblically, in that family story.
Yes.
However, the foundation is always there to come back to. The foundation is always there as a means to set your example.
We can be restored, right?
Yes.
I think we have a little less than a minute now in this, so I want to go back to a scripture that we will continue in the next, I believe it's the third part. In the 11th number of Psalms says, third verse, if the foundation is being destroyed, what can or what shall the righteous do? So when we come back, let us start talking about some of the things that were definitely, who are the righteous? We need to define the righteous, and then talk about what the righteous can do to restore this foundation. In this case, it is the family. We will be back in just a few minutes.
Did you go to the schoolyard? Where did you look? We can make a plan somehow. If I just.
He's a smart boy, and he's gonna be okay.
Okay, try to call him again.
There's no reception. Everything is down.
Try.
I can't.
Try already.
Nothing's working.
Well, just
everything's
try.
down.
Do you think he's on his way? Please. Is he okay?
Laura.
Please tell me he's okay.
I need you to calm down.
What? It's my baby. This is so bad. He's out there by himself.
Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan.
Don't let E. coli mosh with your food. An estimated 3,000 Americans die from a foodborne illness each year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So always separate raw meat from vegetables. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
We taught him how to hit a baseball, how to hit a receiver, the strike zone, the net. You taught him how to hit the upper corner. You even taught him how to hit the open man. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit?
Those of you who have just joined us, I'm Dr. Antony Hobbs, host and founder of this educational program called The School Without Walls. My guest is the Reverend Daniel W. Johnson, the pastor of Allen Temple African Methodist Episcopal Church here in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, located on 1123rd South Virginia Street. Brother Johnson, we were talking about, we were to talk about remedies coming from the 11th number of Psalms, the 3rd verse, where it says, if the foundation be destroyed, what shall the righteous do? And there is a contemporary version that I even like better. It says, if the foundation is being destroyed, what shall the righteous do? So would you define the righteous first? Who are they talking about? And then we'd go into what the righteous should do.
Righteous and righteousness, we can put a lot of big phrases and a lot of big words on it, but it's simply seeking to do right.
Those who seek to do right.
Seek to do right.
Those persons who
Those people who seek to do right. And in our Christian culture, it would be believers who seek to do right. And it should be all of us. Unfortunately, that sometimes is not the case.
That's a conditional thing. It should be all of us.
It should be all of us.
But sometimes it's
sometimes it's not. But as believers and as people of faith, we should consistently seek to do right. And I want to go and talk about what you were talking about with the family and some of the breakdowns. Some of the breakdowns are things that happen. Sometimes we find young people who get married and have relationships, and the relationship doesn't work out, and they found themselves single with children.
Right.
And so that foundation is broken apart. What do you do when that foundation is broken apart? You still seek righteousness. You still seek right living. You still seek the things that are correct. Maybe you don't remarry, but you don't take the child out of the environment that's going to be the best environment, which is an environment of faith, an environment of belief. I'd just like to tell a quick story if I can.
Go ahead.
I have an older sister, and God bless her, who left Arkansas very young and went to Los Angeles, California, got married, had a child. The relationship didn't work. The relationship fell apart. However, she found herself now as a young woman in Los Angeles, California, with a male child, and to raise this child in a Christian foundation was a question. Well, one suggested the child should have turned into a gangbanger. The child should have been in the streets of Los Angeles, taken over by the things.
Right.
But because she didn't leave her foundation, the foundation that she had gotten as a child herself in Arkansas, a foundation that she had gotten in the ecclesia, in the church, a foundation that she had gotten and that had permeated her spirit. She still raised that young man to become a man because of the foundation, the church family, and others who participated. And he became a man 2 years younger than myself, has his own family, has his own son. That says that the foundation works. Right. Even when there's breaks, even when there's challenges, the foundation, if you don't leave it, if you don't desert it.
Stay with the foundation.
Stay with the foundation of righteousness and seeking righteousness and seeking what's right. Just a quick story.
That is a very good story, because we have statistics that state that most of the young people who are in trouble are not a part of the faith group. Very few people who come up in the church, stay with the church, are in prison.
Yes, sir.
Those are just facts.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, we have about 5 more minutes, and we want to continue with remedies.
Well, I would go on and say that the story of the story of Ruth and Naomi in the Bible, also an example of a foundation that's broken. That as they would travel to another land, Naomi had 2 daughters-in-laws, and both lost their husbands, and then the famine took over, and they thought they were dying, and then Ruth says, one daughter-in-law goes back to her land, and then Naomi tells Ruth, say, you can go back to yours too. Ruth chose the option to stick with the foundation, to say, I'm going to stay with you. Your God will be my God. Your land will be my land. And she went back, and you know the story, how the story ends. She does find a husband, which is a tough thing in that culture. Not to say that everybody will find a husband and everybody, it'll work out, or everybody will find a wife.
But she went back to church. She stayed with the church, in other words.
She stayed with the church, and she stayed with the foundation as an example. And she was blessed, and because of her being blessed, she became one of the matriarchs of our biblical story, the great grandmother of David, giving birth to David's grandfather, and the story, the rest of the story is, the lineage of Jesus.
And the lineage of Jesus comes through that later.
Comes through that lineage, and so. Sticking with the foundation, sticking with the truth, sticking with what you believe, what has brought you there. Also, I would say that there are other things, not just the church. I would say that education is key. That you have to broaden your scope, broaden your horizon.
Let's stop on education for the next session. We only have 2 more minutes in this section, and I'm going to do a summary, and we want to continue with keep that point in mind, because
yes, sir.
Right after this, we're going right into segment 2.
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to conclude today that we've talked about the black family and some of the problems of the black family, and we've talked about solutions. And my guest was the Reverend Daniel Johnson, the pastor of Allen Temple African Methodist Episcopal Church, and I will continue with Reverend Johnson in just a few minutes. But the essence is to return to God's family planting. I'm using that. God has a plan for us, and according to what Reverend Johnson has said, is that those of us who are in trouble have moved away from what was that Greek word,
ecclesia.
Ecclesia,
moved away,
which is the church, and we want to return. And that means that we need fathers involved whenever possible, and of course we need women to be mothers. And there is a difference between a father and just a man begetting children, and there's a difference between a female giving birth to a child than being a mother. And my personal position is the world needs more men and mothers.